Tonight, Boeing is back on focus on Capitol Hill. A devastating new document details how regulators in the United States allowed the 737 MAX jet to keep flying despite having analysis showing it would crash with shocking frequency. You'll remember a 737 MAX plane first crashed last year, killing 189 people. The plane crashed again just 5 months later, killing another 157 people. Officials from the FAA have just finished testifying in Washington. A whistleblower who ran the 737 program at Boeing was in fact under oath. He says the company prioritized profits over safety, and nobody at the FAA or Boeing listened to his concerns. Lawmakers pressed the FAA administrator asking how that was allowed to happen.
Are you aware that 4 months before the first crash, he brought these problems to Boeing's attention? You aware of that, gentlemen? 4 months.
I know that there were, that concerns were raised, yes.
That's right. And do you understand that after the Lion Air crash, he went up and down the chain at Boeing? He went to the CEO. He went to the general counsel. He went to the board. Are you aware of that? He sent them letters too,
yes,
saying all the same things. And you know what they did? They sat on it until a second plane crashed. That's what happened. A bunch more people lost their lives.
Stunning. Rene Marsh follows aviation and government regulation in Washington. And I have to ask you, as someone who follows this so closely, to me, I'm incredulous. I think these are people who know that there's an excellent chance that their own family members would eventually be on a 737 MAX. And yet, according to the whistleblower, nothing was done.
Yeah, I mean, today is really stunning, Paula, just because I think of all that we've heard. I mean, yes, we've heard from the whistleblowers, and it was stunning to hear it from their own mouths. But the document that came out, to me, was quite damning for the FAA. I mean, they face these tough questions about this publicly released document, which essentially shows that the FAA did its own internal analysis after this first crash, following that Lion Air crash last fall, and it found that this plane was significantly more likely to crash than other aircraft. And on top of that, it predicted that it would crash 15 more times for the life of the plane. But that 15 number was actually a conservative number because it was based on this assumption that 99 out of 100 flight crews would successfully react to all of those alarms and alerts within just 10 seconds. And Paula, as we've been following this, we know that that assumption was so wrong. The pilots in both of these crashes, they were overwhelmed and could not resolve the problems in 10 seconds. So the bottom line from what we learned today is that the FAA knew this, but they didn't act. This is the regulator, the safety regulator, who's supposed to provide this oversight for the manufacturer to make sure that the planes that we get on is safe. And this document shows that they didn't act in a way that would protect passengers. But yes, we just heard a short time ago before things wrapped up from these whistleblowers, one from the FAA as well as a whistleblower from Boeing, and they were essentially adding on to what we've been hearing, this narrative of, you know, corners being cut at Boeing, the incredible pressure to get this aircraft completed, and on FAA's side of things, ceding to the demands of Boeing and giving them way too much power there in this process of certifying the plane as safe.
And Rene, it seems to be that relationship that has been at issue in the last few months with everything you've been following. And how did this work in the sense that the FAA was under financial constraints and that Boeing was actually their own watchdog that had basically they used Boeing engineers, right, and safety inspectors to kind of certify their own planes?
Yeah, so here's the fact of the matter. The FAA is a government agency with limited funds, and they just cannot match the sort of salaries that a Boeing could offer an engineer. So what the problem is that the FAA doesn't have the sort of brain power that Boeing has. It's a lopsided sort of relationship where the people who really understand the mechanics of this plane and all of the new technology as these aircrafts continue to get more and more technologically advanced, all those people who understand that stuff, actually, they decide to go work for Boeing, who's going to pay them much more money, rather than going to work for the FAA. So the FAA finds themselves in a situation where they don't have all of the people working within the agency that could really look at this technology and pinpoint all the issues. And so what happens is they rely so heavily on the manufacturer, and that's a huge problem. And I expect to see that that sort of relationship will change as we move forward.
Well, certainly would hope so, and obviously not just for the future of Boeing in the United States, but all around the world, knowing that this was a plane that literally hundreds of thousands of people would fly on. Rene, again, really appreciate you following this as you will continue to do so.